Alright fellas, we're back in Pokemon Masters, and today we're going to be looking at Fall Roxanne and Runerigus. Finally, we've got a Ground Week Master Mode stage after I pulled this character like 2 weeks ago? It's November 15th, they left November 1st, so it was over 2 weeks ago actually, probably closer to 3. And yeah, we're finally going to be doing a showcase for her, just because finally we got a Ground Week stage. I did not expect or anticipate for us to get 3,000 point Master Mode. So we're going to be looking at her at that. I don't know if I'm going to preface these videos with 3,000 point Master Mode, 2,500 point Master Mode, or whatever, but all of the stadium battles with Roxanne here are 3,000 points. So if you want to take a gander, see how they work, whatever, go for it, right? But yeah, we're going to be looking at her at 1 out of 5 EX. EX here for her really doesn't matter, honestly. At 1 out of 5, it doesn't matter unless you're, like, doing damage at ground stages, I guess. But really, the damage isn't even that good, so honestly, she doesn't need the EX. The stats are nice, but that's pretty much it, honestly. Her abilities are really, really strong. Looking at her stats, 281 speed's not really that great, but she's got good attack and good health, as well as solid bulk stats. So, you know, they kind of make up for themselves. But her big thing is that she is kind of a support tech hybrid. She's got Sand Tomb for Trap, which becomes AoE with her Hit Team Apply Status Change 9 ability, and whenever the enemy is trapped, it powers up the moves of all allies whenever they attack an enemy that is trapped. So you get a 20% power buff just pretty much for having the enemy be trapped. Very, very nice. And then she's also got her buddy move, which is Grudgeful Bulldoze. It activates whenever there's a trapped enemy, and it's able to lower the enemy's defense and speed by 1 and raise the defense and speed by 1 of all allies. Very good ability, plus it's AoE, of course. 120 power, ground damage. This ability is not for damage, right? You're probably not going to really use it for main damage, as a main damage source. It's mostly just chip, which in its own right is useful. X attack all for attack support. This is pretty useful if you need to have some quick attack buffs and whatnot. But most of the time I find with Roxanne, you're going to be just using Sand Tomb and then Grudgeful Bulldoze. But you can definitely make use of the attack support in some cases. And her trainer move, which applies Gauge Acceleration, raises her crit by 3 and raises all ally accuracy by 2. Very, very strong ability, especially for Lattos, which will be the legendary gauntlet we face today with her, just because she is so good against it. Who needs to face Raikou when you can just face Lattos, okay? And then her biggest ability, in my opinion, is her passive skill, Sync Move Team Stat Up Flip. Returns all raised stats of opponents to normal, then lowers those stats by the same amount. And it's of all opponents, so you don't have to be the enemy that you sync. You just straight up use it, and it hits, or it doesn't hit all opponents, but it does lower all opponents' stats to the inverse. So if you figured it out, combine her with the stat raise parameter in Master Mode. Pretty good, right? Which would have been more viable in 2,500 point Master Mode, but now that we're at 3,000 points, it's definitely less valuable. Just because the stages are going to be hitting harder, they're going to be a little bit bulkier, and really, you may want to at least bring a top-tier support. If you're going to make use of that ability, you're probably going to want a top-tier support, or just a top-tier tank, specifically, and healer or whatever. But for a generic run with an average support, I guess, you're probably not going to be able to make full use of this, just because your support will probably not be able to live the hits. With Sync Countdown, it may work, though. Not a bad idea. Honestly, definitely not a bad idea. But anyway, yeah, let's go ahead and look at Runerigus and Fall Roxanne in some stadium stages, and then go over to Lattos at the end. Alright, our first battle here is against Ground Week Bruno with Ingo and Cynthia. It's pretty much just a generic ground clear, I would say. Kind of unconventional due to the circumstances. Realistically, you would just use Cynthia's Sync move and just AoE attack the entire team, but hey, have fun. That's what I'm doing. So we use the trap there in order to activate not only the Grudgeful Bulldoze, but also so we can do some support for our allies, so Cynthia can do some extra damage, because Earthquake obviously being AoE, not the hardest hitting thing. We just go ahead and go for the Mud Slap with Ingo in order to buff speed for Cynthia's ramming speed, as well as, of course, just apply gauge management. Also, Roxanne able to buff speed, very good for Cynthia, debuffing the defenses and just obviously all stats in general, great for the whole team, but again, speed buffs for Cynthia is very, very good to max out ramming speed, even though now it's already fully activated, which is very, very good. So here we go, we use the sand, set that back up again after they use their sun. Go ahead, use Roxanne's Sync move and Cynthia's Earthquakes, and it's pretty funny, right? It's just, in my opinion, even if it's not really conventional or necessary, I guess, it's just fun to see enemy stats fall. Like Snatch, Haze, the type of abilities are so fun just to watch because you see all the enemies just lose their stats. It's like you see them cry. That sounds kind of psychotic, but it's just funny to me. And here with the Gritchful Bulldoze, we do get some decent side DPS. It's nothing really crazy, but it's not bad, right? You're getting the main stuff you want, which is the debuffs, and then obviously the buffs for yourself. And then Cynthia, of course, is still just going to be acting as our main damage dealer. I don't really queue up too many moves here until I'm able to get the sand back up, because I otherwise don't trust. I don't trust Cynthia to be able to do enough damage, which is definitely justified towards the end of the battle. Especially because Bruno does have endurance. That endurance could be really bad. Also, the sand going down when it did was pretty bad for us in case Ingo would have gone down, but thankfully he did not, and he survives just long enough. Cynthia, I'm pretty sure she crits, but I don't have the grid for Cynthia built for nuking because I didn't really expect to get this far. I was going to be resetting. I figured I was going to reset and have to try something else, but thankfully because of the quad Q, didn't have to. And I did grid this Roxanne. Yeah, I have to use Roxanne's sync move. I forgot about that. But that's, again, the endurance, just in case we didn't do enough damage. That's exactly why. Roxanne didn't crit on that sync move. But rather, I'd run Adrenaline 1 on Roxanne later on in these fights, but in this battle, Adrenaline 1 would have been the most useful lucky skill you could have picked up, and I do recommend that be your lucky skill for Roxanne. But I had Defense Crush 2 in this specific battle, which I just got rid of it. I figured, no, it's not useful. Just go ahead, pick up Adrenaline 1. It's a far better lucky skill for Roxanne here. Even if you're not doing too much damage with her, the sync countdown, if you are going to be making full abuse of the enemy team stat up parameter, you're going to be wanting Adrenaline to kind of mitigate for the fact that you're not getting a support EX, you're not getting damage with your striker or main damage dealer or anything. You are pretty much doing no damage, and it's only to inverse enemy stats. So you want to at least get something with the Adrenaline 1, right? You do need to be able to at least have consistent sync countdown. Anyway, yeah, that was the battle versus Bruno. Let's move on to the next one. Alright, here's a battle with Signature Renegade, Cynthia, and Red and Snorlax. I like to call this battle the Ruins and the Renegade. Yeah, fun titles. I would have put that in like one of the captions, the chapter section in the comments, if I could actually have chapters, because for some reason chapters just don't work for me. So if you ever wonder why the chapters aren't on the channel, it's because I literally could not get them to work. Anyway, yeah, so we don't use the team stat up parameter here because I just found it better to be a little bit more conventional with using Cynthia's nuke. But thankfully, because of Roxanne, we do get a lot of defense debuffing, which is very, very good for Cynthia's innate nuke being physical, as well as Phantom Force's damage is really, really helpful, right? And then using Red here for sync countdown mostly, as well as a few super effective necks, right? Those are definitely very, very useful as well. Could you off-type with this team? Probably not, realistically speaking, unless Roxanne maybe threw it. 3 out of 5 EX roll something, but overall I would say you probably can't 3k point master mode this off type with this specific team. I don't know, maybe you can make it work. I've got no fucking clue, but still, at this specific setup it works just fine on type, and it's honestly pretty fun. I like just using these characters that are less, in Cynthia's case definitely not less conventional, but in Roxanne's case paired with Cynthia, it just feels a lot more fun, because like you're not using someone like Horus whose main goal is to debuff defense. You're just using someone here like Roxanne who's able to debuff defense, apply speed buffs, support with trap. I just find it to be more fun. Also, the X attack ult could be very, very good if you want to try and use it in this battle, because you can max out Cynthia's attack. Definitely going to be pretty useful if you do try and do it. I just opted not to. So now the enemy has -6 defense for Cynthia's nuke, as well as -1 special defense to activate a little bit of her smarty pants. Watch towards the end here. We get the nuke off, which is just fine, right? KO's big whoop, a lot of damage. 65k, still very, very good. Didn't mean to use, well, I did mean to use the max move and the Gritchful Bulldoze, but I only did it just in case we barely didn't KO the enemy. So I shouldn't have done that. Kind of just wasted turns in my ghost zone. Should have just gone for the Shadow Force. And also, Red and Roxanne do go down in this. I don't know why, I don't have the tech take triple damage parameter, it's just that Blizzard hits extremely fucking hard. I guess it's just a +2 special attack, right? That's a lot of damage. That is a ton. But hey, it's fine. Shadow Force makes it so we can dodge it. They go down, not really a big problem. And then we go ahead and use our Shadow Force and just do big whoop damage. Pop. 31k. That's a lot of damage. Yeah, so if you really want to power up those Shadow Forces of Renegade Cynthia, very, very useful to use Roxanne for it. Mostly just because it also helps activate her nuke. Actually, I don't, yeah, does she have Relentless? I think she may have Relentless innate. No, that's Ghost Zone. I don't remember. It's fine. Either way, it's still fun. It's still pretty solid. So yeah, we just use Roxanne there for defense debuffing pretty much, and that's it. The next battle is similar, but it actually is useful for actual multipliers, and it's off type. So 3k off type, have fun. Though it does have it's 2 limited units and a general pool unit, so take that with what you will. This is where we use Adrenaline 1, even though technically Defense Crush 2 would have probably been more useful for mind games. But yeah, let's move on to the next battle. Alright, here we are versus Ghost Week Agatha again. I was going to do Lorelei, but she has a crit shield, so no thanks. I'll pass, buddy. So we use Neo Champion Caleb here as alongside Nessa. Nessa is getting her nuke activated fully by Roxanne because she has Relentless and Cakewalk as her multipliers. So debuff defense and speed. Who's better for the job? Roxanne, probably one of the best characters, not in terms of supporting Nessa, because you do have characters like Signature Silver and Dojo Gloria, but still, definitely one of the few partners that's also very good. Also, she's AoE, so I mean, there's that, right? So yeah, we go ahead and use Caleb here for his Water Shurikens in order to mostly try and heal him, because these enemies actually do quite a bit of damage, right? But that's obviously coming from 3,000 point Master Mode, right? They do hit hard, at least they tend to. And then we go ahead and activate the nuke, or use the nuke rather, with Nessa. We have -3 on the defense and -1 speed before using the nuke here. And they also are restrained, so that's a decent number of multipliers activated, right? And also the rain is up. 20k just from that is honestly a bit more than I expected. But yeah, we try and stay healthy here with the Water Shurikens. Gets pretty hairy towards the end because Neo Champion Caleb doesn't have any form of team healing. At least not at 1 out of 5. I don't know if he has any in the grid. He might. But his healing's only for himself, which isn't bad. But in this scenario, could have been a little bit devastating. But it's not really too big of an issue here. We end up surviving no matter what anyway, even with our pretty low HP. I was very scared of the side there doing an AoE attack and pretty much just killing us after we KO the middle. But thankfully that did not happen. Now they're at -4 on defense and speed. Now they'll be at -5 speed, -6 defense, I think. Pretty sure, yeah. And then we go ahead and use the sync move here alongside them being restrained. So Nessa's full nuke is pretty much activated here. Just no support EX. It's only 1 sync buff. And 38,000 damage. Very, very good. Nessa is still a very top tier character. Let's not kid ourselves, right? Still very, very top tier. Do some pretty solid damage with the Grudgeful Bulldoze there just so we can get some defense debuffs activated. And then we KO them with the Razor Shell. So honestly, not only are we getting the nuke activated for Nessa from Roxanne, we're also getting the 20% support from her being from the enemies being trapped from Roxanne's passive, which is also very useful for Jaw Lock and Razor Shell damage. So you can make full abuse of that as well in this battle, and it's not as if Roxanne's only purpose in the battle was to debuff defense and speed. But let's be real, it was a big aspect. And if it wasn't for the fact that that Nessa's attack was able to be maxed pretty much on its own because you used her trainer move to max her crit, you could have used Roxanne X attack all in order to max her attack if you needed to, right? So if you wanted to, you could have done that, and it would have been useful in that aspect as well. Also going to be obviously useful in like a gauntlet or something. Speaking of gauntlet, let's move on to the legendary arena with Lattos. Alright, here we are versus Lattos. We got ourselves Skyla and Variety Giovanni. You could definitely do this as a duo. I don't know about a solo. I don't know what the innate forms of recovery that Roxanne has. But if she has solid or reliable innate recovery, you could probably do a solo with her against Lattos here. But a duo definitely possible if you have dupes for sure. Just because without dupes, her damage is pretty low. It's quite low. You could probably do a duo with a very strong or a very, top tier character, like, Skyla here with her supporting capabilities. You could probably do a duo with her at 1 out of 5, but mostly for Roxanne to carry duos, you would probably want her with multiple move levels. I also have her as the tank here, but she's very, very good against Lattos for the obvious ability of inversing stab buffs, which comes into play at an immense factor later on in the battle, and it's actually very, very funny. It pretty much just kind of told me how this game works with sync moves, abilities that are activated on sync, as well as having enemy abilities activated. I'll talk about a little bit about that later when it happens. But as you can see, we use the sync move, inversed all of Lattos' stat changes, so pretty much no chance right now for its Fluid Fortification to activate again. We're using Giovanni to debuff its special defense as well as provide good damage. Using Skyla here just for support. you can easily replace Skyla with pretty much any character that can apply potions or some form of reliable healing, right? Even mini potions would probably be fine for the most part, because I ended up not having to do too much healing. But obviously for some, stray crits or whatnot, you would definitely want to have the healing available. But in this case, I didn't really need it, so I was doing pretty fine there. We go ahead and we go for Skyla's sync move here just so we can have the support EX. We don't need to use Roxanne's sync move pretty much at all yet, because there are 0 stat buffs on the enemy side. So we just go ahead and go for the support EX here with Skyla just to have it available. Could have gone for Giovanni's sync move for the ground zone, but honestly the damage with Roxanne is not really the most important thing, so I'm not really going to focus on it. Also, in the moment, I didn't really think about using the ground zone. I just didn't really need it. It wasn't really important to me. What was important was to get as much quicker damage as possible, which doing the support EX definitely the far better option for it. So we go ahead, heal up here. Sadly, Roxanne doesn't have any method of buffing special defense, but it's not really that big of an issue. We try and keep the sand tomb here, but we don't get it activated in time. But we're getting to the point where you'll see what I mean with the with how enemy activates their passives, as well as how Roxanne's ability works when attacking enemies. So yeah, I'll show you what I mean here. We used Roxanne's sync move, right? Pretty normal. We flinch them, cool, whatever. That's not really anything important. And they have, I think, like +2 attack or something, which we're going to inverse here pretty quickly, so that's not really a problem. So it buffs their attack still raised by 2. They get below half, but she buffs her defense and evasion, and then we immediately inverse it. The way the game works is you use your sync move, it then activates all of the enemy's effects that happen whenever it gets to its half HP bar, which in this case with Lattos, buffs its evasion, buffs its stats and whatnot, and then it activates Roxanne's passive with the sync flipping to where then those buffs that Lattos just gave itself in the same moment are now inversed. You would think that realistically it would work where Roxanne would use her ability, her stat inverse would activate, and then Lattos would buff its stats. But no, you use your sync move, Lattos buffs its stats, and then you inverse them, which is honestly just straight up better. So if you ever need a little bit of information on how the game's mechanics works, just know your sync move activates, the enemy's HP bar parameters activate, and then your sync move effect activates. So keep that in mind, I guess. But yeah. There's the clear versus Lattos. Again, you could do a pretty easy duo with Roxanne here, and if she has some form of healing, maybe a solo. I have no idea, really. I don't know if you'd be able to handle the special defense debuffs that Lattos does and whatnot, so it's probably limited to a duo, but still, that's not too bad, of course, for any Legendary Gauntlet fans out there. So it's not too bad, right? It's not too bad. And Roxanne's just a very, very good unit for probably multiple Legendary arenas, realistically, especially ones that buff their stats relatively consistently. You can just inverse those and have a pretty fun time, right? Not too bad. Overall, Fall Roxanne, a very, very strong unit. The stat inversing is not necessarily a unique ability, but using it on her sync move and it being AoE is still very, very good, and the inversing in that aspect is unique. The support capabilities with her attack, defense, and speed buffing are great. The defense and speed debuffing is amazing. Being a ground unit for ground damage is also pretty useful because ground isn't the strongest type in the world, as well as having the support with her trap and being able to do AoE trap instantly is very, very good as well. So yeah, let me know what you think about Fall Roxanne down in the comments below, and I'll see you all later.